we're opening this with a simple model. This is a Keller Williams model, leads, listings, leverage. And the golden letter strategy is probably the one that encompasses all three of these at the highest level, right? When you see what Gary said, concentrate your energy on the high return, high leverage business of listings. Some of us are still spending 80% of our time working on buyers because we don't have a proven listing strategy that is completely able to do month after month, that is always just ready to be processed. And that's why we want to talk with Will here. So if you don't know who Will is, and Will, if we got any of these stats wrong, you can always correct us, but Will, 69 closed units, 30 listings sold, 1,028,000 in GCI in the trailing 12, out of Maine, population of 12,857 people. So it is with my great pleasure that we get to speak with Will. And first of all, welcome, Will. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. Appreciate it.
Well, we're going to use every minute because our audience is going to have a lot of questions for you. So Will, I'll start with just very simply, I think I told Anna you're 23. You're not 22. Are you 23?
Yeah, I turned 23 at Mega Family Reunion in Vegas.
Family
Yeah.
reunion back in February. So yeah, so Will
Yeah.
is 20. Yeah, Will is all of 23 years senior. And Will, talk us a little bit about your journey into real estate so some people can understand the background. Like, was your mom a real estate agent? Your dad, like you were gifted this amazing real estate world. Talk us how you got here.
Yeah. So I got into business at 19 years old. I've always been a worker. I was going to college for computer science, information technology, and I had a small consulting business on the side. So one of my consulting clients was a real estate investor, and he says, if you want to invest in real estate, which I did, you should really get your real estate license. It's a great way to make some more money. So I said, okay, yeah, I'll take the test. It was during COVID. College was online, so that was a bummer. And I got my real estate license and started working part-time. My mother's in the insurance business, and my father's an entrepreneur. I've got no tie to real estate. They both live out of the area now, so no leads are coming in from them. My dad listed and sold his house with another agent, so I'm not getting any good leads from them. All the leads I get from family are actually terrible. So I've done this kind of on my own. My first year, I had a pretty traditional business. I did 23 transactions, over 100,000 in GCI, just kind of doing it on the side, doing the open house thing, no sphere. Second year, part-time, still in college, I did 230,000 GCI, still just grinding, grinding, grinding. And then after that year, I took my last final and said, I'm done with college. So last year was my first full year in the business. Literally had to teach myself everything. I still didn't know what I was doing, but I was full-time, and I just said, I'm going to treat this like a job. And I got a coach, was accountable, stuck to a system, and it yielded over $1 million in GCI as my first full year in the business.
Woo! So everyone, give him some love in the chat box, just because, first of all, that's just awesome. Or clap, yeah, either way, right? It's just absolutely phenomenal. So we want to dive in. Obviously, you do a lot of things in real estate, but in talking to you, one of the biggest strategies that you decided to select, and I do think that is the right word, right? You had a coach, you started talking about different things that you could do business-wise, open houses, expireds, you could do this, that, or the other. You seem to kind of, and it's not the only thing you do, but you would probably say your biggest lead generator has been golden letters. Can you talk why you decided golden letters? And for those that don't know what a golden letter is, because there might be a few on here that don't know, what is a golden letter and why'd you decide on that strategy?
Yeah, so I was doing literally everything under the sun, right? Calling for sale by owners and expireds in a TCPA compliant manner, of course, door knocking, doing all that stuff. And then I got a maps coach, and she's like, all right, pull all your leads, right? Where's the business coming from? And the most consistent results I had were from golden letters, which I never really stuck with. And what the golden letter is, it's just a very simple MOFR, making offer for immediate response. That's just asking, dear Brandon, would you sell your house to a client of mine at 123 Main Street, right? Or, dear Jill, would you sell your condo here? I'm just asking people if they'd sell their property to a client of mine and getting them to raise their hand. And I've found that I'm not an extrovert. I'm not very social. Like, I'm pretty awkward, honestly, in person. But I really committed to the dialogues and I convert at a really high level. So we found that's the model I'm going to consistently do, and I'm going to do very successfully, right? So I found a couple ways to excel in this business with things that actually didn't drain me, right? I didn't love making calls. I didn't have a database. I don't have a sphere to this day, but we identified I'm really good at converting, right? I'm really good at the dialogues, and we ran with it.
I love that. Okay, so strategy then for kind of A to Z golden letter is first. I love if you could explain to everyone the economics behind it. So I know you have kind of a formula. So I get my letter, and it's not rocket science. It's maybe 4 sentences, 5 sentences top. And I think you truly believe, from what you've told me, that you believe the more simple it is, the better it works. Is that a true statement?
Yeah, so everybody messes this thing up, and it's like the simplest thing ever. And you just get to copy what I'm doing. And honestly, I just copied it from someone else, right? So it's just a regular piece of paper. It doesn't have my picture, it doesn't have my logo, it doesn't have my letterhead. It says, dear Brendan, would you sell your house at 123 Main Street to a client of mine? If so, call me on my cell phone. I hand sign at the bottom, I send it out in the mail with a stamp on it. That's it. Everybody wants to reinvent the wheel, and everybody will show me what they're doing, and they'll change the language to, would you sell your house at fair market value, or my
Mm,
buyer just missed out on three, multiple offers down the street, or I just sold. Nobody cares, right? Let's just ask them, would they sell their house at their address to a client of mine? And if so, call me on my cell phone, right? Do not change it. That's why I'm so successful, is I do not change it, and I stick with the system. The simplicity is why people call.
I love that. Anna or Angel, can we put that in the chat box? Do not make it complicated. Keep it simple. I love that. So I've made my letter. I've got, and I know I'm going to go technical here because some people are.
Yeah.
So it's not handwritten. It's still typed. So you go and you pick a neighborhood of, let's say, 300 doors. How do you decide on the neighborhood?
Yeah, it's very simple, and I have buckets, right? It's a multi-step process. The first is, do I actually want to work there, and does it fit my business model, right? I'm very specific on where I want to work and the economics, because I know my net income goal. I know how many units I need to get to hit that. I know how many conversations, how many appointments I need to run. I know exactly what I need to do. And honestly, mobile homes don't fit within that model, right? I want to work less and make more. So I know exactly where I am, where it is, and what the average sale price is. And then the next step is making sure there's actually turnover to support that, right? So if you're only sending these to $10 million homes, the turnover is likely going to be pretty terrible, unless they're, eroding from under them and falling into the ocean, like what's happening in Maine right now. So maybe I need to
Sure.
focus on that, right? But oftentimes you're in these maybe starter or second home neighborhoods, right? Maybe it's during graduation season. If you're in a seasonal market like I am, I'm going to hit the lakes in the winter, right? When people are starting to think about selling. If I'm in the mountains, I'm going to start mailing them now in the summer. So people always ask me, where do you send them? You got to know the market, because you're the market expert. Where are listings happening, right? Go on your MLS, hit close, see where the clusters are. When one neighbor lists, another one is bound to list too. So if you can see maybe a 4 to 6% turnover, that's awesome. If you don't know how to find that, that's fine too. Go to your MLS, see where closings are happening, and you know the market better than anyone. If you have 100% market share in your neighborhood and there's only 5 listings a year, that's not enough to make a business out of, right? So you got to think bigger and identify, where are you going to see a return.
I love that. And over time, we'll show you how to do a turnover conversion at 11:30 if you want to join us for that. That's a great piece, but I want to make sure we get every minute out of this. So he's going where he sees the market's hot. Well, the other thing is, are there certain months when you don't send the letter?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a great question. A lot of people ask me, well, I had a lot of success in this month, but not others. Think about the consumer, right? Even, as real estate agents, we don't think like the consumer. And I see this in social media, right? Where agents are just like posting just real estate, right? After the consumer's bought and sold, they don't give a crap about any of that, right? So you need to think like a consumer outside of golden letters, but just as your real estate business, of like, honestly, homeowners don't care about really you, they care about what you're going to do for them. So think like a consumer, be in the consumer's shoes. After Halloween, right? I tell people, you're not moving unless something really bad's happening, right? So that's a good trigger, right? Halloween, because then what? It gets cold, right? You have Christmas, you have Hanukkah, you have all this stuff. People don't like moving in the winter. Identify your market. We find right around the 4th of July, not a great time. People are distracted. right around back to school season. People are distracted. You have to know your market so well that you know when you're going to get a return. In Maine, we don't send letters October to the first of the year. We know the return is so low. It's not worth our time. It's not worth our money. We're hammering on the database, right? We also know in the spring market, great time. Really poor time, right around 4th of July. Like I said, people are distracted. So think about the consumer, be in the consumer's shoes. People really aren't checking their mail a lot when they're on vacation, right? So identify when are people home, when are people listing, and you can actually see through your MLS listing trends. I know what mine is in Maine. It's going to be different in other states, but it's also a good lesson to think like your consumer.
I love that. Boy, that was nugget after nugget after nugget. Yeah, if your letter is going to land on the Friday before Memorial Day weekend, are you going to get maximum response from that letter or 4th of July weekend, right? So, yeah, let's just have common sense about this. And what you heard him saying there, I want to make sure he's clear, is he doesn't stop working from October through January 1st. He said, we go double down on the database. We go back into this. We're going and talking to the people, but we know the response of a marketing mofer, right, is not going to get the same results during that time frame. So why spend the money, right? So I love that. There's always strategy behind this, and those were absolutely phenomenal. So talk to us the formula of what you've seen so far, and if it's changed, with the current market or the interest rates. What are you seeing on average for letters out, calls in, and conversion? What does that formula look like?
Right. So as we've seen just as a market as a whole, at least where I am, right? I don't know every market, yet we're doing more and getting less back, right? So we've found that it's a skill game, right? If I have to send more letters and have less appointments, I really need to make sure I'm landing every single appointment I go on and qualifying people really well, because we need to find the ready, willing, and able, not just ready and willing or just able, but not ready and willing. We need to find the triple threat: ready, willing, and able. And if they're not, we just need to know what bucket they're falling into. Maybe it's a nurture, right? Maybe we put them into our CRM and we send them a smart plan, but we need to actually identify who's ready, willing, and able. We found during COVID, we could send out 200 of these and get 15 calls back and sign 3 listings, and it was awesome. We found right now we need to send out 600 to 1,000, right? Even if I had to send out 5,000, based on my business model, my conversion and average price point, the model still makes sense. I'm not paying Zillow 38% for a listing lead. My average commission is close to $20,000. If I have to pay $4,500 to get a $20,000 commission, I'll do that any day of the week, right? So just know your numbers and then track your conversion, right? It's really up to us to convert these leads.
So Will, just to, because I want to simplify it for some. So for a while there, you were saying it was about 300, you would get about 6 phone calls, and from that, three, I think, appointments. Is it something similar to that? Like, I know it varies all the time,
Exactly.
but what do you see in the average right now? Is that about accurate? For every 300, you're getting about 6 phone calls?
Exactly. Yeah. So send 300 out, you're going to get 6 phone calls. And when I say 6 phone calls, six decent. They're not all quality hot leads, but there are people that, they're suspects. They're not prospects, but, they want to have a conversation about real estate. From there, I'd say I vet them and qualify them and set 3 appointments, right? I could probably set 6 appointments, yet I like to keep my dollar per hour high, and I don't like just to tour houses for fun, right? I didn't get into real estate because I like architecture. Um, I'm there to make money and help people achieve their real estate goals, and you can't help everybody. So half of those people are just going to be curious about the market or curious about the buyer you have, right? Time wasters. The 3 appointments I set, I'd say I know in my gut, I'd say one or two of them are quality, and then the other's probably going to be a nurture, right? Maybe they're not ready today, but I have built my business on nurtures, people calling me in a year when they are ready. So you really need to convert and ask the right questions and not just set the appointment. I get 6 calls, set 3 appointments, typically sign and sell one. Maybe I sign and sell two. I'm very realistic with people, and I'm not signing listings I can't sell.
I love that. And what he's saying too is, remember, for us that are trying to build ambassadors and relationships, it starts to fill his database, right? So yeah, I love what he said. There's suspects versus prospects. These suspects might be suspect at the beginning, but we all know something. If they reached out to you, there was some thought that they were maybe interested in doing something. Just what
Right.
stage are they at, right? They might be at the initial baby stage, and you're trying to shove down, you got to sell right now, and then you're mad that they don't. And it's like, you're not going to make them do something that they're not willing to do, but build them up, put them on a marketing plan, adopt them into your world. And when the time is right, maybe they use you, right? And that's a thing. Well, I think some people just think it's a one shot, one kill all the time, right? It's like I got the phone call, I'm selling this guy's house, whether he likes it or she likes it or not. They've got to be ready, willing, and able. And that's all you can deal with. So I love that. Now we did have a question, and Jurgen, it's a great question because it's one that I have here on my list as well. So let's just keep it simple for everyone. 300 letters go out, 6 people call me, and then the 6 people call me. Let's just take one of those 6, and they go, Will, I got your letter. So you got a buyer for my house?
Yeah. So I'll
That's usually
say,
how it goes.
cut. Exactly. And then from there, we want to convert it to an in-person meeting, right? No business usually happens over the phone. It's just like if it's an expired or for sale by owner, right? You got to get there in person because we can deal with objections all day over the phone, but until we're looking eye to eye, there's no point. So you'll ask me, yeah, you asked me, do you have a buyer for my home? So I'll start the call out, call you. Thank you for giving me a call about the letter I sent over. And you'll ask me, hey, do you have a buyer for my home? Well, Brendan, I'm sure you know right now there's just simply no inventory on the market in your area. We're working with many different buyer families right now. And instead of just sitting and waiting for the right property to come up, we're reaching out to homeowners like yourself and seeing who might be interested in having a conversation about the sale of their home. Is that something you've thought of? Right. So we're just flipping it back onto them.
So they either say yes, no, or whatever. So I go, yeah, I mean, we were kind of thinking about it, Will, if we could get the right price.
Absolutely. So where would you go when your house sells?
Scottsdale, I really tired of the snow.
Me too. I'll be working here for a while, though. Unfortunately, Scottsdale's beautiful. Well, what I propose is I'd love just to come by and see your home. And that way I can do some due diligence for the folks we're working with. And at the same time, I can give you a real-time market number that the algorithms can't even keep up with. And that way you can make the best decision for you and your family, whether you decide to sell today or even in 5 years. At least you know where you stand. So would 3 o'clock tomorrow be okay with you?
Yeah, yeah, 3 o'clock sounds perfect. Thank you, Will. Right?
Awesome. I'll see you then.
Yeah, so you can see, I mean, obviously he's had that conversation, hundreds and hundreds of times. I'm sure it wasn't poetry the first time like you just heard there. And you got to understand that a lot of times, sometimes, right, they're jerks, Will, and they just go, oh, you don't really have a buyer? They hang up. And you got to be
Yeah.
okay with that, right? That's totally fine. I think some of us then we go, well, it's martini time because I just got my soul crushed and now I lose the rest of the day. Expect the fact that some people are just going to say no and know that it's a numbers game, right? He knows 300, 6 phone calls, 3 appointments set, usually closes and converts one or two, right? And just I think that's a great formula to use. So now, Will, I now now you set the appointment. So I'm excited. You're going to come over to my house at 3 o'clock. You set the appointment. Do you bring anything to that appointment? Are you bringing a market analysis? What are you bringing? Are you bringing a listing presentation? You show up on my front door and I'm kind of like, wow, you're 23. You have buyers for my house, right? I'm just messing with you, but right, they're going to be like,
Seriously.
wow.
Right. I always
So,
show up. I have a packet. I use a manila folder like that. It has a listing presentation in it. It has their, I have like a tax software. It spits out everything. Last time it sold, and then a couple of comparables, and then I take it from there. And for me, I learned I had to overcome my age with knowledge and skill and how I present myself. So
whew,
when I go, I'm there to knock their socks off. And I think honestly, even the agents that maybe they're established, right? Like when people see that how I show up, they can tell I'm energized. And a lady said to me the other day, she's like, we can tell you are passionate about what you do, right? It's not that I love like sitting there with people and talking to them about it, but I've got that energy, right? I go in and it's not, I always say it's not an ego thing, but I go in knowing I'm going to sell this house, knowing I'm going to sign a listing because it's all about affirmations and believing in yourself, right? I went on a $2.3 million listing appointment last week, right? It's on Route 88 in Falmouth. There's a gentleman in Maine. He's been the number one agent for 45 years here. He sells 100 million more than anybody else, right? He owns this corridor. I was starting to think, you know what? It's just good experience. I'm just going to go, it's awesome just to get the opportunity. And I flipped it. I said, I'm going to go sign that listing. And if I don't, it's because I don't want it. And guess what? I went in there,
whew.
interviewed against 3 other agents, and I got the listing. And it's not ego, it's not bragging, it's mindset. You go in knowing you can help people and you are a trained killer. That's it. So I bring the listing presentation, I run it as a listing appointment, and people can feel my energy and they recognize my skill and they know I can help them. And that's why they work with me.
Wow. Yeah, I love that. I overcame my age with knowledge and skill set, right? And that is, and Will, we talked last time, how much were you practicing every day to get to this level? Because I think people don't understand the back work. It wasn't like you woke up with a golden tongue. Like, how did you get to there? What was the work that was put into it?
Yeah, I was super shy. I like wasn't really good at, talking on the phone. So I would just practice every single day for 30 to 60 minutes, listening to the Diana Kokoska CD. Actually, that's how I watched you. There was a script off that you were like, I would just go on YouTube and just listen to, Glover's listing presentation, the script off you did, just grabbing every little piece I could and just hearing how people handled objections. So then I could handle them and I wouldn't get, oh no, I don't know what to say, right? I knew exactly what to say, when to say it, how to say it, and that's how I got my conversion up.
So 30 to 60 minutes of practice every day, 5 days a week?
Yep, exactly.
Five
And
days a
when I
week.
was driving places, I would just listen. That's it.
That's it. That's it. I love it. I love it. So now I'm in the house, Will. I've got my listing presentation. They let me in. You do your whole presentation. And a lot of questions that I get a lot of times is they're going, well, aren't they really asking, do you have a real buyer? How do you negotiate or navigate that conversation of you're at the house and they're like, well, you said you had a bunch of families you're working for, so are you going to bring them by the house to see the house? And you say,
Yeah. So, and to step back, I always put my paperwork and everything on the dining room table so we could sit down in a place where I'm not in a lazy boy, leaned back and trying to explain stuff, right? So they show me around the house. I take notes, I make comments. And when people see you taking notes, no matter if they're super high C, D, they appreciate the attention to detail, right? Because there's multiple different personalities. From there, we go and talk numbers. I run through the market analysis. If I sense, some people, they really want the listing presentation, I can read the room. That $2 million listing, I didn't touch the presentation, right? They're high D, they just want in and out, done, right? And that's why I clicked with them. Read the room, make a connection, make some sort of personal connection with what you see. And then we go over the numbers. And I say, based on your understanding of the market, what do you think your home's worth, right? So I always try to get something out of them. If that doesn't work, we start to go over, well, this is what the market's saying. This is what this house sold for. And I picked this house here because of these reasons. And I think your house is superior to this. And based on what the market's telling us, your value is likely here. So then they ask me, what about the families? So we're working with many different families right now. And as you can see, it's a very strong seller advantage market. So we have a lot of options. And it honestly just depends on what you want to do and what's best for your family, right? We can either list the property and get you the most amount of exposure, which could result in multiple offers, maximizing your net. Or if privacy is important to you, we could also keep this offline. I'll explain the benefits of each system and let them decide, right? The other one is, do you want a cash offer, right? We offer a cash offer program. So it's just what tools do you have in your toolbox? And don't try to push a strategy based on what you want. If it's a very private person or they don't want to do a lot, maybe it's off market, right? But if they are understanding what you're talking about and they want the most amount of exposure, right? What's most important to you? Is it getting the most amount of money? Great. That's why we should list. So figure out what's best for them and present the options and let them decide.
I love it. I love it. And so when you're there and you look at the house, sit at the kitchen table, you go through this. I just want to note that he was saying here is having the different options. So whether again they go, look, I want privacy. I don't really want to take this to market for whatever reason. I think people get stuck there, Will. So what do you do with that kind of property that they don't want to put it on the MLS? What's your strategy on selling that?
Yeah. So what about putting your home on the MLS concerns you, right?
Yeah, I'm just nervous that, I'm going through a divorce right now and I don't want people knowing that we're separating and I'm just a little embarrassed.
Yeah, no, and I totally appreciate that. And the reason so many people choose to work with me is simply because I adapt and I have many different strategies, right? So if you're concerned about privacy, right, we don't have to do open houses. We don't send out postcards to your neighbors. And ultimately, I'm your fiduciary. I only do what's best for you. And everything we talk about is kept confidential unless you authorize me to share. So by putting your house on the market, Nobody has to know unless it's news you want to share with them. And honestly, by doing that, we're going to be able to expose it to more people, which is going to net you more money. And in a divorce situation, I often find it's important for folks like you to maximize their bottom dollar. So why don't we just do the right thing? We can put it on the market. We don't even have to have a sign installed or do an open house. You call the shots.
Boom, 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 boom. Fire nuggets, knowledge nuggets in there. I love it. So now looking at this, so either you leave with a signed listing agreement or you leave with a hopefully an ambassador, someone that you truly believe will list or sell with you in the future or refer a real estate business to you as you move forward. So now you've finished that series of letters, right? Do you come back like at any one time are you like, I'm doing 300 here, 600 here, 900 here? Do you try to keep it very neighborhood specific or are you going, I'm going, because I know some of us on here, they're going to go, I'm just going to bomb out 2,000 today to a zip code, right? Like, how do you, we've got people that'll just pull the trigger like that. How are you deciding? Is it in smaller clumps, neighborhood specific, or is it, how do you make that decision?
It's what you can handle and what your market supports, right? We don't have large subdivisions here. And honestly, these subdivision type neighborhoods are pretty low turnover. They're more like executive style homes, right? So I am doing like partial towns, right? Or, large condo associations, for instance. It's what you can handle. I've got other lead sources coming in. I have a lot of other builder relationships, right? So I know, I probably can't handle sending out 5,000 right now. I could a year and a half ago. My whole thing is if I'm spending the money, I want to maximize my, return and actually be able to convert the business. So, start small, see what you can handle. Can you handle 100 inquiries a week, right? Are you a solo agent? Maybe you can only handle 50 a week. Shoot out 500 and see how you react and see what your return is. It's all based on how many appointments you can run and what your goal is, right? So if you're behind on appointments, you don't have the conversations, you need to hit your scorecard so you get the points in the Facebook group and get hyped up. You better get to work and start folding some letters, right? That's how I
That's it.
alter everything in my business and I throttle it, right? If I need to hit this many appointments, I'm going to send out more. That's why I love this system. I'm not just paying Zillow more and hoping people call me.
Whew, there we go. Well, Will, I would stay on here with you for hours. Everyone in the Pulse Nation, if you could share some love for Will, we're going to put out all kinds of information on how to engage with Will. Don't send him a bunch of emails, ask him a ton of questions. He's got resources. He's a very smart person, obviously, because he gets a lot of questions about this. He's going to direct you to all the sources. We'll direct you to all the sources as well. But follow him on social media, see what he's up to. Make sure that you're supporting him in his efforts. And then, Will, I can't thank you enough for sharing this time with us. We obviously would probably love to have you back again if you would be
Let's
so
do
so
it.
willing,
Yeah.
yeah, willing to do it. And if there's anything we can ever do to help, just let us know. So big shout out. Thank you, Will. Have an amazing rest of your week and year. And thank you for sharing with the Pulse Nation. Appreciate you.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much. I'll catch y'all later.
Thank you.